Alright guys, this is Double Dragon 2 for the Famicom. We're going to play that on the NES using the adapter, and I'm going to play it on the NES so I can play it with the NES Advantage and also get the best AV picture. So take your game, line it up like so, and pop that in. Make sure that you leave, of course, the felt bit out so you can get it out when you're done, and that should work. Alright, here it is, Double Dragon 2, The Revenge. This game came out for the Famicom and NES in 1989. Now here we can see it's 1 and 2 player mode, two player modes for hitting each other or not, and you can pick your difficulty there. And you can see that's all English, but the storyline there is not English. And I had someone asking, damn, I got disrupted by any 8-bit boobs. Those are pretty good for 8-bit boobs. Anyways, I had someone asking when I picked up Famicom games, how can you play Famicom games if they're Japanese? And this is a perfect example right here. Most of the games in English, the option menus are in English, just the storyline that's actually in Japanese. So you can certainly play this game like most Famicom games. If it's not an RPG, chances are, you know, a lot of the menus and stuff like that are in English, so you can easily play the game. This is, like I said, Double Dragon 2, The Revenge. This was an arcade game in 1988, published by Technos Japan, and in 1989 it was brought to the Famicom and NES, also published and developed by Technos Japan. Even though it was developed by the same guys that made the arcade, this is not a direct port of the arcade game. In fact, the NES Famicom version is almost a completely different game. Some of the designs of the actual levels are similar, but that's about it. The levels are different, the graphics are different. It's almost a completely different game. Similar with really Double Dragon, the original Double Dragon. If you played the arcade game and you played the NES game, there certainly are a lot of differences. The biggest difference from Double Dragon to Double Dragon 2 you'll find is the controls. The controls are very different in this game. Actually, the controls in this are very similar to a previous game made by the same guys that made this game, and that's Renegade. The predecessor to Double Dragon, but it had this really weird control scheme where B just attacks to the left and A attacks to the right, no matter which way you're facing. And that's how this game here, Double Dragon 2, controls, and let me tell you, it will take some getting used to at first. You know, the first time you play Double Dragon 2, you're going to be swinging in the opposite direction. You're going to have an enemy in front of you, you're going to be swinging behind you. You're going to turn around and have an enemy in front of you, and you're going to be swinging behind you. It's a pretty simple control scheme, and it makes really awesome sense. I mean, the B button is on the left. The B button attacks to the left. Doesn't matter which way your character's facing. It doesn't matter if your character's facing the right or the left. The B button attacks to the left. A button's on the right. Same thing. A button always attacks to the right. Doesn't matter if your character's facing the left or the right. So basically, if you're facing right, A will punch, but B will kick behind you. And if you're facing the left, B will punch, and A will kick behind you. So there's no dedicated, you know, one button is kick and one button is punch. Depends on which way you're facing, and that's where it gets a little confusing. To jump, you gotta press A and B at the same time. That does make jumping a little difficult, especially on some. There's not a lot of platforming in this game, but there are a few spots where you've got to jump onto a small ledge, and jumping's definitely a little bit more difficult, as you have to press both A and B at the same time to jump. Up is not jump because some levels there's depth. I know right here you can see there's no depth, so up or down does nothing. But in other levels, up and down actually moves your character towards the screen and away from the screen. There's a little bit of depth, like Double Dragon. Here's an example here. Now you can see you can move your character up and down. So, you know, there's no dedicated jump button. The game's not too hard. I mean, I'm playing it with the NES Advantage, of course, and let me tell you, that does definitely give you an advantage. That controller is awesome. The turbo features on that thing are great, and you know, you're going to be mashing the buttons a lot in this game, so those turbo options definitely come in handy in this game. The music's very good in this game. The music was very good in Double Dragon, and it's just as good as it is in this game. Very good music. Like I said, this game was originally an arcade game, and a year later was ported to the NES and Famicom. I can only assume it came out in Japan first, but it came out very shortly after for the NES. We also saw a Game Boy version, a Mega Drive version, a PC Engine version, but they were all published by different companies. Only the NES version was actually published by Technos Japan. So the Game Boy version, I've never seen it, I've never played it. It was published by Acclaim. The Mega Drive version, published by Palsoft, which is a Japanese company. So I'm not sure how the Mega Drive version is. It may be a closer resemblance to the arcade game. And then the PC Engine port is actually pretty late. I mean, this game came out in 1988, and you know, the PC Engine port actually came out in 1993. So there you go. It's actually a CD-ROM game, and it's a mixture of basically the arcade game and the NES version. So some of the level design is the arcades, and some's the NES version. Oddly enough, it takes advantage of CD-ROM in that it actually has voice acting in it. So in the little cutscenes, in between every level there's cutscenes, and of course in this version we're talking Japanese cutscenes, but in the PC Engine CD-ROM version you get voice acting for the cutscenes, which is pretty cool. Obviously the soundtrack's better. It's sort of like a remix of the NES version, but you know, it sounds better because it's CD music. And this game, I mean, it was ported to the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, DOS, Amiga, Amstrad, Atari ST. So obviously this is a popular game, lots of ports. It's a great beat-em-up game, and yeah, that's all I have to say. This is an awesome game. Definitely running out of time here. Obviously, you've probably seen this game if you like beat 'em ups, but if you haven't, it's definitely worth picking up.